Hey everybody out there, welcome to Anchors of Hope. This is the 11th episode here at the Anchors of Hope, and this is an exciting episode for me to be sharing with you, something I've been thinking about, and having just returned from the Israel-American Council Summit in Miami, literally just flew in for 3 days for the council, wanted to share my thoughts on attending conferences. And seeing conferences as a sort of petri dish. And in this case, or in the theme of my podcast, The Anchors of Hope, this is where active hope meets infinite potential. And I feel as though I do have what to say about conferences, and I actually collected all the passes over the last several years. I counted 57, that's 57 of these conference passes, if you will, with the last one being this one, just coming back from the Israel-American Council Summit in Miami, and really excited to share some more. So I'm just going to put this down here for a second, and just wanted to share my sort of my resume on conference attendances. I bet you many of you out there may have attended even more than 57 conferences, or perhaps a lot less. Either way, I think 50 or more gives you some sort of a certification, if you will, on sharing some ideas about it. So having just returned from the IAC Summit, the Israel-American Council Summit in Miami, wanted to share something with you that might change how you think about conferences entirely. And I suggest that this would apply not just for, the types of conferences that I may attend, which are Israel-centric or having to do with the Jewish people, if you will, but really for any conference you might attend. So picture this for a second here. Thousands of people literally attend these conferences, people from across the world, from countries in North America and Europe and elsewhere, Jews and non-Jews in my case, professionals and volunteers, tech entrepreneurs and educators, philanthropists and activists, all converging in one space. In this case, it was for 3 days. And so you might ask yourself, what brings them together? In my case, it has to do with Israel and the Jewish people. But what actually happens when they're together, these thousands of people? And that's where it gets interesting. Most people attend conferences and come home with a stack of business cards, some inspiration from keynote speakers, and maybe a few LinkedIn connections. And they'll tell you, it was great, it was inspiring. And then what happens is sometimes nothing, or most times perhaps nothing happens. But here's what I've learned. Conferences aren't just events. They are petri dishes. They are places where diverse passions, expertise, and influence intersect to create infinite possibilities. The question is, are you conscious enough to recognize them? Today I want to talk about how active hope transforms conference attendance from passive consumption into purposeful catalyzation. Because the same principles that have sustained Jewish resilience across millennia, the same active hope that built institutions, preserved communities, and turned longing into return, these principles apply to how we show up in a conference gathering. Let's explore what it means to attend a conference with hope as your strategy. So what does hope have to do with networking at a conference? Everything. Remember, we distinguish between passive optimism, comfortable waiting for positive outcomes, and active hope, the agency-driven action toward desired outcomes. Most conference attendees operate in the space of passive optimism mode. They show up hoping something good will happen, hoping they'll meet the right person, hoping an opportunity will find them. But active hope works differently. Active hope says, I'm entering a finite space with finite time. In this case, I had 3 days, surrounded by people who made an intentional choice to be there. Within this ecosystem, I have agency. I can choose consciousness over autopilot. I can choose engagement over observation. I can choose follow-up over forgetfulness. In Hebrew, the word tikva, hope, it shares a root with kav, meaning cord or line or continuity. And hope isn't wishful thinking. It's the tether that connects present action to future possibility. At a conference, that tether is made of conversations, connections, points of intersection you actively seek out rather than passively stumble upon. Think about it through our three anchor framework, the three anchor framework of the Anchors of Hope, this podcast. Jewish peoplehood has sustained not by hoping Jews would magically stay connected across continents and centuries, but by building institutions, synagogues, schools, communal structures that actively maintain those bonds. Zionism, transforming 2,000 years of longing into actualized return, not through wishful thinking, but through the conscious strategic work of building infrastructure, negotiating diplomatically, and creating the conditions for return home. And modern Israel's innovation economy didn't emerge from hoping good things would happen, but from intentional policies, educational investments, and a culture that transforms adversity into opportunity. The same principle applies to conferences and these humongous gatherings we go to. Hope without strategy is just wishing, but hope as strategy, well, that changes everything. So let me be more specific and share 10 specific strategies that I use and that I saw working quite brilliantly, I think, for me at least, at the IAC, this conference I just got back from, for practicing active hope at conferences and other types of gatherings. First, recognize the Petri dish potential. These conferences bring together people from vastly different worlds: tech and education, politics and philanthropy, Israel and countries from around the world. This isn't just diversity for diversity's sake. It's combinational potential. Your background plus someone else's expertise plus a third person's network equals possibilities that didn't exist before you all converged. But only if you're conscious enough to recognize them can you double down. Can you do something about it? Passive optimism says, maybe I'll meet someone interesting. Well, active hope says, I'm in a rare convergence of diverse talent and passion. How do I engage this strategically? Second, practice conscious attendance. Most people, well, they miss the entire point. They attend sessions, perhaps collect business cards, meet up at the bar, and then check emails between panels. Maybe they're checking out their social media post, and then they return home perhaps somewhat unchanged. Conscious living is where we meet potential. Enter the conference aware that in a finite space with finite time, every conversation is a potential doorway, but you must be present enough to notice the threshold, remove the barriers of distraction, and understand that the potential comes in all directions. This is not a time to be an autopilot. Third, come with an open mind. Leave your assumptions, preconceptions, and professional boxes at home. The barriers you carry, mental, professional, social, they will block the very opportunities you traveled perhaps miles for to find. Openness is a prerequisite for opportunity. Think of it as the difference between a closed fist and an open hand. Only one can receive. Fourth, master the dual strategy. Work the room and hold court. Here's what I actually do. I work the room. I identify people I know and people who look interesting. I trust what we say in Yiddish, my kishke, my gut, and usually it's right. And then I approach. But I also strategically position myself. I grab a table at the lobby or by the bar or next to the coffee shop where everyone's going. I open up my laptop and here's what happens. People come. People I know and people I don't know. People want to meet one another. Why? Because this isn't a public street where people disappear into a crowd, where people are coming and going. This is a finite ecosystem. The same sharks are circling and they will spot you. You got to use this time to your advantage. Fifth, treat conversations as appetizers, not the main dish. This is crucial. Keep initial conversations at the app level interesting, flavorful, enough to whet the appetite, but not the full meal. You're not there to have a one deep 4-hour conversation. You're there to have dozens of compelling introductions that create hunger for follow-up. Many appetizers lead to many main courses later. Sixth, develop your exit strategy before you need it. You don't want to spend 90 minutes with one person when you could meet 9 people at that time. Have a graceful exit. Prepare yourself. For example, I'd love to continue this conversation. Can we schedule a call next week? Politeness without apology. Movement without rudeness. Seventh, remember the conference is the entry point, not the end point. Conversations started at conferences don't need to end there. In fact, they shouldn't. The conference is a launching pad for relationships that mature over months, perhaps years. It takes 6 or 7 meetings until something comes into fruition. Think about it as planting seeds, not harvesting crops. For example, at the IAC conference, the summit creates the introduction. Your follow-up creates potential partnership, potential collaboration. This is active hope in action. Understanding that today's connection is tomorrow's collaboration if you nurture it. Eighth, follow up or it never happened. Non-negotiable. If you don't follow up within a week, the conversation evaporates. The potential of making your dream project come true, of turning that chance meeting into a transformative collaboration, it all disappears if you fail to act. The conference creates possibility. Follow-up creates reality. Ninth, create your conference tracking system. Before you arrive, design a simple document. Who did you meet? Which organization or area of interest did you engage with? What did you discuss? When did you follow up, if yet? What are your next steps? This isn't bureaucracy, it's strategy. You'll meet dozens of people without a system. Valuable connections dissolve into vague memories of, that was an interesting person I met somewhere, but nothing came out of it. And number 10, understand that intentionality unlocks everything. The difference between people who gain transformative value from conferences and those who collect business cards is intentionality. You must enter with conscious awareness that you're not just attending, you're actively participating in a unique ecosystem where your presence, attention, and openness can catalyze unexpected collaborations. Passive attendance yields passive results. Active engagement, the kind rooted in active hope, yields measurable outcomes. And now the deeper pattern. I want to bring this back to our larger framework because there's a pattern here that goes beyond conference networking. You see, Jewish civilization has survived and thrived, not because we hoped things would work out, but because we built anchors, we built institutions, we built practices, relationships that connected vision to action across generations. When you attend a conference with active hope, you're doing the same thing. You're not hoping opportunity will find you. You're creating the conditions for opportunity to emerge. You're building relationships that become anchors for future collaboration. And here's what I noticed this last conference at the Israel-American Council that struck me powerfully. The people who were most effective weren't necessarily the loudest or the most prominent. They were the most intentional. They listened deeply. They asked good questions. They followed up. They understood something fundamental. In a world of infinite distraction and shallow connections, the simple act of being fully present, of treating another human being as a potential partner rather than a networking opportunity, is itself a form of resistance. It's a form of hope. Because hope, remember, it's not a feeling, it's a strategy. It's the conscious choice to act as if your actions matter, as if connections actually lead somewhere, as if the future is shapeable rather than fixed. The Talmud teaches us, Kol Israel aravim ze bazeh. All of Israel is responsible for one another. But responsibility requires connection, and connection requires presence, and presence requires the conscious choice to show up, really show up in finite moments with infinite potential. So here's my challenge to you, to all of us. The next time you attend a conference, whether it's a Jewish Israel-centric conference or a professional association or a community gathering, don't just show up. Anchor yourself. Anchor yourself in consciousness, in openness, in the strategic belief that the person sitting next to you at the lunch you might be attending, or at the bar if you have a drink, or at the coffee shop, might become your partner in building something that matters. Anchor yourself in follow-up, in documentation, in a tracking device, in the unglamorous work of turning an appetizer of conversations into a main course of collaboration. And anchor yourself in active hope. The recognition that the future, isn't something that happens to you. It's something you create with the people you choose to engage. David Grossman writes about anchors as the things that keep us tethered when storms rage. But anchors aren't passive weights. They are strategic placements. You drop anchor where you want to stay, where you believe the ground is solid enough to hold, whether that's a job, a project, a relationship. A conference is a moment of strategic placement, a chance to drop anchor with people whose vision aligns with yours, whose expertise complements yours, whose passion matches yours. Will you drop anchor, or will you drift through hope, hoping that the current carries you somewhere interesting? The choice, as always, is yours. Once again, I want to thank you all for joining me here. I'm Rabbi Lior Sinai, your host at the Anchors of Hope. And until next time, may your hope be active, your presence be conscious, and your follow-up be relentless. And remember, Am Yisrael Chai, it's not just a slogan, it is a way of life. Till next time, love and light from Israel.